Welcome to On Target, the show that aims a spotlight on the people, policies, and ideas making a meaningful impact across Florida. I'm your host, Rosanna Catalano with Arrow Group, proudly recognized as Florida's new lobbying firm of the year. As a subsidiary of Gunster, one of the state's leading law firms, we bring decades of cross-industry expertise, combining legal insight with strategic advocacy to help our clients hit their mark and move Florida forward. On today's episode, I'm joined by speaker, consultant, author, real estate expert, and Florida A&M University Board of Trustee member, John Crossman. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Ro. Thank you.
So I've been reading up on you and your background in preparation for this conversation, and there are some common themes that keep coming up, and they are service, real estate, and sort of building connections.
Sure.
I also saw that your father was a civil rights leader. Is this true?
That's correct. So in 1970, the Sun-Sentinel named my dad the bridge builder for his work in the civil rights movement, getting people together. Years went by, my dad passed away, and then some people were trying to recognize that, and they came to me and they had this idea of naming an actual bridge after my dad. And so we worked together as a little group, tried to get it done, couldn't get it done. So you know what we did? We called our friends at Gunster. And they came in and they did a phenomenal job, Derek, Bruce, and team. And
I went to law school with him.
Well, they made the Reverend Ken Crossman Bridge a reality. You can Google that. It's in Central Florida. And that was in a season where our country was like talking about building walls and taking statues down. And here was a bridge named after a pastor who was trying to get people to work together. So I have a long history with my family in civil rights, but I have a specific connection point with Arrow and Gunster and the wonderful work you all do.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's true.
I love that story. So for our listeners that are unfamiliar with your background, tell us a little bit about, your educational background and how you got started in commercial real estate.
Sure. So I just like to tell people, being a pastor's kid and a civil rights leader kid was awesome for so many reasons. It was great. But we also didn't have a lot of money. My mom likes to say we lived by faith. I like to say I tried poverty and I didn't like it. So when I went to college, I went to FSU and majored in real estate. And I wanted to be a devout capitalist and make money. And what I didn't know until years later is I actually have a pretty serious issue with dyslexia. And so school was really hard for me. But real estate clicked because it was kind of tangible. So I was this poor kid that wanted to be successful and do things, but I was in my heart was a community guy. And so that's where I really try to be today. I try to be a guy that's doing real estate deals. That's vocationally what I do. And then finding great partners to make impact on important topics.
So you're quite humble because you have been very successful in real estate. At what point did you know it was time to give back?
Well, part of it was because I was raised in very diverse communities, and then I got into real estate and it was not diverse. Well, we have diversity in commercial real estate. We have old white guys and middle-aged white guys. So we do have both. We do have both, right? But, seeing that and really become very aware of like that connection point. So if you look at the average white family in America, average black family, and there's a wealth gap, the heaviest percentage of that wealth gap is real estate. And so 15 plus years ago, I got a scholarship endowed for Florida A&M University. It was the first real estate scholarship they had from a third-party group. And I challenged them to create a real estate club. They did. It's still there. It's doing great. I cheer for them on Instagram all the time. And then I endowed the first ever officially real estate scholarship at FAMU, and then did one at Bethune-Cookman, did one at Jackson State. And so we're trying to put real estate education at historically black colleges, and hopefully that goes across country. And one last thing with that, we did endow a scholarship off of Valencia College for people of Hispanic descent, and so trying to be in that space as well.
Well, I actually had a question about this, so I'm going to skip and go to it.
Okay.
It said that you've, over the years, you've created multiple real estate programs at historically black colleges and universities, the HBCUs. Why was that important to you? I think you sort of hit on this.
Yeah, well, what I like is, sometimes culturally or politically, an issue gets exaggerated because people get passionate about it. But it's not necessarily, in my opinion, like a real issue, like a practical, this is a real thing, right? So real estate education, financial literacy, real estate education is a real issue. I'll tell you what's another real issue is like suicide prevention, right? And so that's something else I'm passionate about, mental health. And so I try to pick paths that I feel like I have a calling and maybe a gifting, but also maybe it's something that you don't get as much coverage on. And that's why partnerships with you, Ro, is so important, because you guys have consistently believed in me and backed me and helped me so many times. And it's been wonderful, but I need that. To tackle the tough problems, we have to have community and work together.
So a lot of your focus has been improving higher education in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
From your vantage point, what are some ways that Florida can improve higher education?
Well, I think it comes back to more practical steps to make well-rounded people. Let me tell you where I go with that is. We have a bunch of students in our state that have never made a B. Like, I didn't get many Bs because I was on the other end of that, but they've never made a B. They got straight A's high school, and they get great SAT scores, and then they graduate, and then if you ask them to go talk to somebody, they get nervous, right? And so there's some practical steps they don't want to do. When my daughters were in elementary school, we would go to Publix, and I would tell them, I'm like, I want you to help me go find these items. And they'd say, well, I don't know how to find them. I say, well, see that person with the green shirt, go ask them. Like learning how to go up and talk to people, right? And so we can have kids that are straight A's on tests and that looks good in reports, but it doesn't mean they understand how to write a handwritten thank you note or how to solve a complicated problem. Like, how do we address complex issues, the human component. So I think we got to create some balance in that of understanding. What's funny, Ro, a lot of times when I'm at college campuses, I'll just say to the students, I'll say, are you over 18? Do you have a job? Do you have an IRA? And the response is very low, very, very low. So it's that kind of stuff. I think we're doing a great job. Number one university system in America, great universities. And I've spoken on most of them, and I can meet these wonderful students. But I think that's that sweet spot. That's also why HBCUs are so interesting, because if you came with me and we guest lectured together, which would be really fun, we should do this, Ro.
I've actually guest lectured at FAMU, but it was many, many years ago in the beginning of my career.
Yeah, but if we guest lecture every
I'm
college,
happy. Let's do it.
Absolutely, at every university or state, and we did it at their College of Business. The best one is FAMU. Like their SBI experience is phenomenal. A lot of our CEOs around our state don't know that. So we lose these outstanding students to Houston and Atlanta and Chicago and New York. And we need to get more of them in Tampa and more in Jacksonville, right? So understanding those skill sets that some of the students are getting, and sometimes our employers don't even know that.
So you talked about Florida being a leader in the education space, and we talked about what Florida could improve in higher education. What do you think it is that we're doing that is better? And how do I want to say this? What do you think we are doing that's changed for the better in recent times?
Well, I think one of the things is we're diverse, and I mean that in a real way. There's all kinds we could judge diversity, but one of it's diversity of thought. If you're out of state and you're a working class family and you have this rock star kid, and they want to go to school in Florida, because who wouldn't want to go to school in our state? And maybe, again, they're super conservative. Like, we have some great conservative universities. Maybe they're more liberal, and we got liberal universities. You have a student that's really into the arts or in the sciences or business. Like, we're not singly defined. We have a lot of wonderful, or HBCUs, right? So students can have a very broad experience in our state, and it's very appealing. I got to tell you this. I have two daughters. One's a senior at Palm Beach Atlantic University, and another one that's a junior at Southeastern University. And when we were at parent, orientation at Southeastern Lakeland, a lot of parents from out of state. What were the two biggest issues they had? Alligators and hurricanes. That's what they kept asking about. And I kept thinking, all the times I've seen alligators flying through the air, coming at us, But, again, I met all these wonderful parents from across the country that the greatest thing they have is this child, and they want to send that child to our state. Right?
Is it safe? They're worried, right?
Well, and even in that space, like when you start talking about like Christian universities, there's a broad base in that. Ave Maria is not the same as PBA, is not the same as, Florida Southern or Bethune-Cookman. So I just love that. Like, sometimes we can feel like, if you're in a state like Michigan, it's like the University of Michigan, maybe one school kind of dominates how you feel, or Ole Miss and Mississippi, things like that. I feel like our state, you can go to a lot of different places and have a phenomenal experience. And that's really cool. A lot of work I've done with college students, sometimes I've had a parent say to me, oh, how's your kid doing? Oh, they're going to go to Valencia. Like, that's down. I'm like, guys, that's great. I have been on stage, because I was trustee at Valencia College, more than once, met a young lady, shook her hand, and she looks at me and she says, this is my mom. And mom's graduating with her. Is that not the sweetest thing? You can't tell me that's not a generational changing, tear-jerking, and I want to cry right now thinking about a moment.
Literally changes the trajectory of that family.
Absolutely. And so I just love that as a part of who we are as a state.
I love that too.
That's
so before we end our conversation today, I wanted to take a moment to plug your book, Career Killers, Career Builders. I want to make sure I have the right name.
You did it.
The book every millennial needs to read. What can readers get from this book?
Well, it's kind of, I tweaked it a little bit just because I say every young professional, because millennials are getting older, What I always tell people now is I always say, this is a book that helps prevent your CEO become on a Jumbotron at a Coldplay concert, that kind of thing. It's not a book about professionalism, meaning how to dress or showing up on time. This book is written for achievers and the people that employ them, right? So we all could name that rock star person that their career was doing this and then they went bankrupt, or even worse, they took their own life. I mean, you and I could talk about this, and we could name celebrities, we could name politicians, we can name business leaders, and people we both know we could name. We're like, how did that happen? And so that's the space it's coming from. It's like the ones that are doing this, what are the things they need to be thinking about that really could, it's not just like having a bad day, ending their career. And then what are the skill sets they need to prevent that from happening? So one of the things I talk about a lot is, going to therapy or getting counseling. Ro, if you and I were getting ready to get drafted by the NFL, right? We're going to go play in the NFL.
Any day now.
This could happen.
I know it's going to happen with my very tall frame. Yes, any minute.
But if you and I were to play in the NFL during the course of the season, it's a 100% chance we're going to get injured. Now, we might miss one play, one practice, but every player gets injured. Would you and I go to work for an NFL team that had no medical staff? Of course we wouldn't, right? So we know that. So in our lives, you and I will experience tragedy. That's the thing going to happen. And so to be thoughtful about that, of like, well, do I have a medical team? Do I have resources? If I'm hit with a very deep tragedy, it could be loss of someone, loss of a job, who knows? But would I even know who to call, right? So that's why I'm so big on promoting the suicide prevention resources. And I hope, people listening to this never have that experience. But if you did, or someone you loved or someone you worked with did, you could call me and I can help you. I can promote where you get those resources. So for young professionals, having the tools in their toolkit, they know how to make A's, but what happens when they get a B? What happens when tragedy strikes? They didn't get the promotion. What do they go to help reinforce and regird them and make them a stronger person?
I love that. Where can people get the book and information about these resources that you have? Where can they get
Sure,
these
you can get the book at Amazon or Target or anywhere you would think find a book. You also can check out my website. It's Crossman Career Builder, CrossmanCB.com. And very easy to find me. So obviously we try to provide a lot of resources out there for college students, many of them free, and their scholarships. And then if somebody has a bigger project, they need a consultant, we can do that work too.
Oh, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. Well, I'd say we've hit the bullseye with this episode. A big thank you again to John Crossman for joining us today and sharing your time and valuable insights. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to like and follow us so you never miss another episode of On Target. This episode is proudly sponsored by Arrow Group. With high-level relationships and the backing of Gunster, Arrow Group is redefining the government affairs landscape in Florida with a bold and strategic approach. True to our name, we're focused on precision, delivering sharp direction and innovative problem solving to help our clients hit their mark. To learn more about Arrow Group, visit our website at arrowgroup.gunster.com. To suggest a topic or guest for a future episode, please email me at podcast.arrow@gunster.com. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Rosanna Catalano.